Hi everyone. I've got Arnava with me. I've got Akshada with me. We're here to talk about Indian football yet again, and there've been a few developments in the past couple of days that we're going to touch upon. We're going to touch upon the developments in the IWL as well, and a lot of other things. Arnava, something that we as kids saw growing up is grassroots football. Some grassroots programs, of course, not a lot of them when we were growing up. I see that now for the younger generation. My brother's playing football, for example. I see a lot more programs, a lot more institutions that teach football, that help you understand and educate people on football. Just before we start talking about the recent developments about the Blue Cups program, let's just touch upon and understand what exactly grassroots football means. Now, can you just tell us what specifically grassroots football is? Is it only youth football? Is it other kinds of football and all of that? Please.
So grassroots sums up everything in a sense which is not professional football, which is not sort of semi-professional football. So it starts with the senior level, which is amateur level football. Youth football is in that way part of grassroots, which is sort of football for everybody. And that is, I think, a misconception sometimes I see in India, is that when you talk about grassroots, a lot of people talk about football for kids from the age of, let's say, 6 to about 12. Nowadays, a lot of clubs or organizations start football with 4-year-olds, with 5-year-olds on the one side. And again, if I'm playing with my over 35s, that's also part of grassroots football. So in that way, grassroots football is a much bigger thing. But again, we cut it down, because when we talk about grassroots, we sort of it's the lower age bracket before we move on from the grassroots to the youth development system sort of football, which is still also, in theory, it is also part of grassroots, but it's not considered to be.
I don't know. I feel like this is not only a misconception in India. Wherever I see people refer to grassroots football as specifically youth football, what could be the reason for this? And it's such a large misconception, right? Like in the footballing world that we have.
I think when we talk about sort of, we just had the AFC Grassroots Day, across Asia. There's this conception, again, as I said, it's about kids playing football, and we're not talking about youths. We're rather talking about small kids, sort of playing football. But it's actually open to anyone and everyone. It could be kids, it could be youths, it can be adults, male and female. That does not matter. It could be someone who's who could be 4, or someone who's 80 who's playing. It could also include, we talk about football diversity. We talk about people with handicaps. We talk about people who are blind who play football, in a very special way with the ball which makes sounds. So therefore, last year the Ferenc Puskás Award went to this guy with the one leg who scored that exceptional goal. So all of this is actually part of grassroots. But mainly when we talk about grassroots these days, and a lot, as you said, not only India but in large parts of the world, of this planet, we talk about grassroots as being that sort of 6 to 12 years age bracket.
Yeah, Akshita, I think another thing that I just wanted to touch upon is it's so important to have community football, not only for kids but probably for people who are a little older, 30 plus, 35 plus, people who are retired and things like that. Do you see that in your community? As somebody who is living, I'm from Bangalore, and I see some people getting together, but I do not see enough football being played, like people from the age of 40 plus and things like that. Do you see that in your community? Do you see people coming out and playing after a certain age?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I did not really see that happen very often. But in the last couple of years, I've seen that, I live in Delhi, so, there are areas around where I put up here where, a lot of men who are in their late 20s, early 30s get together after work, and they find a way to play football with their friends. There are also apps now coming up. I think Huddle is one of them, which is, helping people find like-minded people to play or interact in sports with. Aruna, I have one question, because we wanted to discuss the Blue Cups today, which is that of course we are talking about the new Vision 2047. We want to talk about how things will look in the future for Indian football. But can you also throw some light on what things were like when it comes to grassroots level football? And this is something that we have repeatedly said in our podcasts as well, or on Twitter Spaces as well, that we start to target the athletes at a very later age. But now with the new initiative that the AFF has is wanting to bring in, they want to target younger kids who are 4, 5, 6 years old. Perhaps one of the best ages to include kids and start introducing them to a sport. So can you throw some light on how things were like before and what can we expect from this new program?
I think not only in Indian context, in a global context, a lot of kids start playing football for the fun of it, and it was not very systematic. Um, you played in your own backyard, or if there was an open field, and that is part of how you sort of start sort of the natural footballers. Nowadays, you're trying to create structures where these kids are playing more organized football at a younger age, and I think that is the big shift that is happening. My concern with all of this is when you talk about grassroots football, do we have the coaches, not only the coaches, but the quality that the coaches possess to teach the kids the right thing at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, before they could potentially get into academy football? And if we look at the situation and the status of how good or how bad our footballers are at the moment, then you would have to say no, because I think despite having now so many more coaches at grassroots and at youth level, grassroots, we didn't have coaches about 20 years back, the quality of football has not improved. So this is the question, which is, what are you imparting into your kids? Are you trying to copy something which you've seen, you've read in a manual, or you've seen that someone is doing? Again, what Pep Guardiola is doing at Manchester City, Des Buckingham cannot do at Mumbai City, right? It doesn't work. What he does there, Melbourne City can't do, New York City can't do. So you have to be very, very specific in regard to what you do with your kids. What are you teaching your kids? What are you trying to, educate your kids with? Because one interesting thing is, when I was speaking with Renedy the other day, for example, it was an exception when he got picked by the Tata Football Academy. He was 10, 11 when he got picked. Tata Football Academy, that stage, used to induct kids at the age of 13. So Ranjan Chaudhary saw something special in him. That's why Renedy was inducted into the Tata Football Academy. And Renedy would have not had any other real option at the age of 10, 11 to play sort of organized football. So that is, I think, the huge challenge, the big challenge that you have in when you're organizing football in an Indian context, that you are in a situation of what do you teach the kids. A lot of baby leagues have come up. You're creating competitions, but what is the quality? We'll talk about it in a context of the IWL as well. Is mass better than quality? And in an Indian context, mass should not be the issue. I mean, if people are talking about 40, 50,000 kids, sorry, that's a joke. We should be talking in millions, right? So that is the reality of, if you're talking about 5 million, that is more than the population that Iceland has, that Croatia has, But for India, 5 million is a very, very small number. So we have to see, where are we doing it? What are we doing it? How are we doing it? And I think the implementation part is very, very, very crucial. Ideas is not a problem in an Indian football context. We need to look at how things are implemented, and best practices need to be shared, and we need to create an Indian model. It might not be a pure Indian model, which means that what works in Bengal works in Goa, or what works in Kerala works in Manipur and Punjab, whatever. No, you have to localize it, because India as a country has so many ethnicities, has so many languages, so many backgrounds, that again, what works for you, for example, Rahul in Bangalore, will not work for Akshata in Delhi NCR. So these are the things that we need to come up with and find the proper solutions for Indian football to now create the players, so that when these players are, in 25, 26, which means that it's 20 years down the road, these players can be world beaters, so to say, at least compete at the Asian level, but at least take also India to a World Cup, maybe.
Rahul, you did go through the press releases that were shared by the AFF. Was there anything mentioned about the implementation? Just want to clarify for the people who are listening.
In terms of implementation, nothing real. I think it was just basically a rough structure of what the plan is basically an idea as to the different aspects in football that they want to bring together. An interesting fact that I noticed in the press releases was the mention of coach development. I feel like it's something that's fairly fresh to Indian football. I haven't really heard of coach development or come across it in an Indian context. Arnav, have you come across coach development, and how important is it today for us to have coach development programs as such?
I remember when I was at Mumbai
I
City.
also want to
Sorry.
Sorry, Anna. I also want to add one more point to Rahul's question, which is that we are in the Blue Cups program. We will be dealing with younger kids, so they will be, of course, requiring some sort of extra attention, extra affection. So can you also include that one?
I think two things. First thing I think is that again the AFF is targeting millions of kids, and the question is, they've used the word engage. So the question is it a one-off thing in a way, or are you engaging with them on a regular basis? So for me, I think that's the first thing that you need to find out. Are we able to create year-long programs? So, which, for example, Jamshedpur FC has installed in its baby league in Jamshedpur. They're trying to play it for 10 months. So there are pockets where people are trying to do it extended. Others are saying, listen, if I run it for a month, my resources, my manpower is gone. Coaches are saying, listen, I can keep my players for a month. So there are different problems in different parts of India. As you said, I think taking care of the kids, is a this social responsibility angle is a very, very important one. How are you being inclusive? In Germany, we see that sometimes girls do tend to play with the boys up to the under 15s. We had in our city a very special case of a girl which was given a special exemption to play even in the under 17s with the boys. She was then played the under 17 World Cup, now plays at Bayer Leverkusen in the Women's Bundesliga. So for her, that playing with the boys, of course, she had a different dressing room set up in regard to changing room and all that stuff, but the rest she was always with the boys. But that has helped that girl to reach a different level potentially, because she's the boys are rougher and tougher, the boys are normally bigger, but she was tactically better than the boys potentially. So therefore you have to find those nuances, and I think coaches, as you mentioned, Rahul, I think when you ask that question, I think the coaches are the most important factor in developing a player. Grounds can be of a certain quality, food can be of a certain quality, nutrition can be of a certain quality, but if the coaching is not top notch, you will produce numbers, but you don't produce quality. So therefore the question is, are we going for mass, or are we able also to go for quality? And that is the huge challenge.
Arnav, I recently got the opportunity to talk to Jan van Loon, who is currently BFC's youth development coach, and it was something that is really interesting that he pointed out when you were talking. And he said there was another coach, I think, who was talking to the kids after an under 13 game, and I think the kids were sitting down, and the coach was standing up and talking to them. And he said, if I was the coach, I would have sat down. I would have made the situation a little more inclusive. And these are the small, tiny things that he feels that coaches should learn. And how important are these small, tiny things when it comes to younger kids and talking to younger kids and coaching them?
I think India is a country where frontal education is very, very normal. So therefore, your yes sir, yes ma'am mentality is nice to have. But if you've got intelligent kids, if you're talking about tactics or this or that, they should question you if you like it or not. Again, sitting down, yes, could be a way. I would personally, if I was coaching a team, if I was a coach, I would rather prefer everyone to stand. Why sit down? Sit down is a sign of laziness. So that those are the kind of small little ways of including. I remember I saw a few years back here the under nines of Manchester City were playing games, and the coach was recording the matches on an iPad, and in the breaks between matches, those were 8-minute, 9-minute matches, he was showing the players their mistakes potentially, or the things that they did well, and then said, listen, next game try and implement those. So this is instant coaching, so to say. So those are the things. How are you using technology to your advantage? I know a lot of people say, grounds are a problem. When do we train this and that? And it's happening at the top level as well. But again, again, if these are the ground realities, you have to live with the ground realities and then work in the best possible manner. Again, people in India often forget that countries who are regular at World Cups, their infrastructure, their all the other things, the aspects that you talk about, are worse than what India has. Our infrastructure to some extent is better than what Argentina has. Look at the stadium that Boca Juniors plays in, or River Plate. They would be happy to have a stadium. For them, the Kochi Stadium would be a blessing in disguise, because when they play in their stadiums, you shouldn't be calling them stadiums. So again, those are the realities we need to wake up to. Our focus needs to be on getting on one side, getting as many kids as possible to play to start off with, the pyramid to get the best up to the top, and secondly, the quality of coaching that is imparted into the kids at the youngest age. Because if they don't learn it when they start playing football, the basics, a national team coach will not be able to teach them at that level.
Yeah.
Another crucial point is also, sorry, Rahul, please go ahead.
No. Yeah.
So another crucial point here is also the safety of these kids. We have to make sure that, like, because they are such young, innocent, they'll belong to that particular age group. So we'll have to make sure that the coaches also know how to behave with these kids. Make sure that their personal boundaries are not, we respect their personal space, and make sure that they are not harassed or face any sort of unfortunate incidences while they are at the field. Along with that, there's no certain, like, as we've seen in the press statements, there's nothing really mentioned how to go about it. There are already academies that are working in grassroots level football. Will we be, connecting with them? Will we be finding schools, reaching out to schools, doing some programs in these schools, or conducting competitions? Nothing right now. The structure is very vague. So maybe, I'm hoping that there is still room for feedback that can be incorporated by the AIF. So if there is that sort of a room available, what do you think are some of the crucial points that we need to keep in mind while going through that structure or trying to implement that structure?
I think you mentioned very, very valid points, but on the other side, I'll also say is that football or sports in a way is also sometimes a very rough and tough environment. So you can't be sort of, if your coach shouts at you, for example, let's say, if your coach is a little louder with you, you should not be offended, because he's telling that to you in that moment. Again, and those persons are also under pressure. Of course, psychology plays, again, how much of psychology classes are imparted into coaches is one of those questions. But again, it should roughen and toughen you up for life, because life is not a cakewalk. We all know that it's got its pitfalls and all. So therefore, if we learn all of these things, I think that is a very important step for these kids. And again, I think you have to work on the basics. I think we can do running and all that stuff all the time, but if you can give them sort of a positional sense of where to stand, how to create your triangles, how to trap a ball with both your feet, not with one foot. Try to play with both feet. Get an understanding of where to stand and run on the field. I think those are sort of basic things. If you can learn those as early as possible, but also impart the fun, give them the freedom to do their dribbles and try tricks and try to sort of score in a certain way. Then I think that would be a good way of trying to impart the basics into the kids.
We have a question from Dipanjan. Before I go to Rahul, I'll just quickly take this question. It's not really a question. The exposure tour that our under 17 boys are getting should be done in a regular manner. They are in your country right now, Arnav.
It's been happening. It's not something that is new. So that's the first thing. I think that is something that has happened since I did it in 2002. Tours have been happening, especially regularly over the last sort of 7-8 years. It's a good thing on one side, but on the other side is you are playing only friendly matches. And I wrote the other day, right, that 3-3 against Real Madrid is a brilliant result, or beating Atletico under 16 or under 17. But your problem is these are not competitive matches. You don't know how these Spanish boys are taking it. Are they taking it seriously? The same thing with Germans or Dutch or whatever boys you have played or will play. So therefore, your own competitive system should be so strong that you can play in your country, and then you go on exposure tours, but not such extended tours. You're going on these extended tours to cover up for the fact that the competition in your home country is not good enough.
Rahul, you had a question in mind?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've personally seen in college and for my brother when he started playing football. When he started playing football, most academies practiced on five-a-side fields or max seven-a-side fields. And even when we went to college, I feel like the system isn't good enough even at college level because we don't have a lot of colleges do not provide for 11-a-side grounds, or they provide us with five-a-side fields. Even if they're astroturfs are the good playing surfaces, when you go and play outside, it's obviously just not the same. And I see that for my brother as well. When he started off playing five-a-side, he did that for three years, I think 2 3 years, and then we moved him out to another club where they had the infrastructure. They had a nine-a-side ground, and it got a little tough for him initially, but then he got used to it. How important is it to start off, playing 11-a-side football or nine-a-side football in bigger grounds versus five-a-side?
I think as kids, it's very important that the grounds is suited to your size and to your age. So when you are 4 or 5, you can't play on an 11-a-side
Yeah.
pitch. You're likely to play 3-a-side, 4-a-side, 5-a-side, 7-a-side, 9-a-side, 11-a-side. It has to grow according to your age. You should be reaching normally at maybe under 11, under 11, maybe even under 13 level, the 11-a-side system. So therefore, the point is, and I think there shouldn't be differentiation between astroturf and natural turf. Again, I know how difficult it is to maintain a natural ground turf in Indian weather conditions. So again, we have to live with these realities. You have alternatives. Again, in Brazil, some of the best footballers in the world have come out and they've played on concrete grounds. These guys in Rio and Sao Paulo play on concrete grounds. They break bones and I don't know what everything, and play on those grounds and learn their football. Or they learn it. Ronaldinho learned his football on a beach. His flair, his class comes from this joga bonito is his beach football. So therefore, you have to see that you play. First of all, play as much as you can. If you can play 5-10 hours a week, brilliant. If you can get 2 matches on top of it, ideally. You need to have had about 10,000 hours of football by the time you turn professionals, and that is something which is missing because you're doing this sort of systemized, organized training, which is like twice, maybe thrice. Yeah. So therefore, it is a different kind of football there than compared to what we have here.
And just the other thing, what about college systems? Because again, wouldn't that form a part of grassroots for people who are probably a little older, guys who are 18, 19, and want to pursue their football? It becomes a little tougher for them because they don't have anywhere to go to.
Again, when we talk about college football in connection with grassroots football, colleges could be an alternative, but I feel that's a very American way of doing things. And it's not just football, it's a lot of other sports. I think tennis, for example, or
Yeah.
golf are ideal sports where you lose a lot of talent to the colleges, because once these people start studying and they get into the studying side of things, they're lost to the sport. Even in football, there's a lot of players, even from a German system, who at 19, 20 realize I'm not going to make it. I'm going to go to an American college. I'll do a year in America. Let me play a little bit of football on the side of it. We've just seen it in our team here in Remscheid, in a small team, that players are going over there. And he's spending a year, he's studying, he's playing a little bit of football for the college as well. But yeah, it's something that is there, and it could be a road, and it's the same thing as with the PSU league that the AFF is intending to start with the public sector units as well. It's a very Indian way of trying to do it and trying to sort of get people into jobs. But if you get these people into jobs and you've got sort of a national level PSU league, might that be a loss for the I League and the second division? I don't know. Or maybe even for the women's league down the road if they create a women's PSU league. So therefore, you have to see what is good for your structure, what is not good for your structure. It is also, I know that in a lot of things, India is very, very socialistic in the way of trying to structure and having quotas and all that kind of things. I think in sports, you do scholarships, but keep it to a minimum. Let the best come through, and that is something that's where we're struggling, I think, a lot.
We also have three questions that have come up, so we can maybe quickly take them up now before we continue this discussion. Uh, Kumar is here. Hi, Kumar. Anwar, what is Kick ID, where AIFF has collaborated with a Germany company? I know you have some known thing about Kick ID.
Kick ID is a way of using AI in talent identification. So it makes the processes of the federation a little easier and to track talent as well. So that's what Kick ID is, simply said.
Next is from Utkarsh. If our grassroots are so bad, then how are we getting pretty good under 15 and under 17 teams, especially in recent years? I think we need to focus on under 20 and 23 teams more so that the transition is not affected.
Well, there are certain problems regarding age with our under 17s. So I'm not going to get into that, but that's the main reason of why we are so good compared to the others. And then, of course, we don't know how many years they're older. That's our biggest problem. Yes, I think transition from 16 to 21 is another issue, uh, um, where we don't have a transitional system really. And the other problem is that for a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, ISL teams are willing, or even I League teams are willing to pay big money. But they are the number 16, number 17, number 18, maybe even number 22, number 3, number 24 in that squad. So therefore, for us, that's a drawback. But again, if and that's the we have to understand that club coaches are playing the best possible squad to win the competition or win matches. Most of them are not there to say, listen, I'm producing players. If you're producing players, that's a byproduct. It's not the main thing that you're trying to do. So therefore, we have to be very, very clear. But our 16 to 21s, that's where we are lacking at the moment. I think the Reliance Foundation Development League is a good step. But it's a little weird that some teams are really playing under 21s, others are playing under 19s. So there's, it's a little bit of a fractured sort of thing that is happening in there. So therefore, you have to find the right way of developing. I think an under 19, under 17, under 15, under 13 is the need of the hour. Extended leagues, I know that's a challenge for the AFF. I know that's a challenge for the clubs. It's a cost, it's a travel issue, it's a scheduling issue. It's a match officials issue potentially as well. So there are a lot of issues, and I think we'll have to give it another 3 to 5 years for that youth structure, so to say, which is sort of on top of the so-called grassroots program. That needs to be there. It's a lot of has been started over the last few years when it comes to these golden baby leagues, and I think many of them have been successful. But again, the problem is also in the golden baby leagues, to me, that you're playing to try and win the tournament. I think we should stop that at those age groups. I think there it's about talent development. But again, how do you judge it? How do you judge creativity and all those signs? Would be interesting to see.
Next question is from Poojan. How to impart a collective scouting paradigm at such a large scale for the constructive result of the Blue Cups program? Are we ready with our resources standing today?
One word answer, no. I think this will evolve over a period of time, Poojan. I think scouting is still something, and Poojan, we were talking about it in the context of East Bengal the other day. That certain clubs have to still wake up to the fact that they need to do scouting locally in their city, but also not locally in their city, but also across sort of states, this state rather, not the states, and try and find players. And I think that is something that is very, very crucial. And also have a defined youth development system within clubs. Certain teams have taken time to build it. They've not built it overnight. And therefore, structured development is very, very important, and not go out for results.
Yeah. Also, to all the people who are here, please subscribe to Sports Company and Arun Foot. The link to Arun Foot is already present in the caption, so you can just click on the title that you can see and go to Arunava's channel and please subscribe to it. Next, we have Harsha Bandhan. Allowing PIO players or giving permission for two passports in special cases with proper terms and conditions will help. For me, it's two passports. As good under 17 players need good league to become good players. Guys, also like just to interrupt, that we already have created multiple videos on this particular topic. So I'm sure Anwar will quickly give an answer to this. But you can go ahead and watch those videos. Once this podcast ends, what I'll do is also link the links to. I'll put the links of those particular podcasts in the description. But please, if you can quickly answer
So,
this.
so to answer this quickly, very quickly, dual citizenship is not something that India will allow in a
Yeah.
short space of time. OCI card representation is also something that they don't seem to be interested in or willing to allow. So, therefore, that discussion is sadly, a lost cause at the moment. Again, I have pushed for this over the last 2+ decades, and I will continue to push for it. But at the moment, it looks like that the AFF has other priorities, and the government doesn't really is showing priorities. I said that also in the context of the AFC Asian Cup. I think 80% plus teams playing the Asian Cup will have players of origin playing for them.
Roshan is also here. Roshan has, I think he wanted to add to a previous point that he made. Some football players also played also in cages.
Exactly. So these cage grounds, these concrete cage grounds, these 5-a-side, 7-a-side grounds, where it's succeed or die or perish or whatever you want to call it, and that's the challenge again. That it doesn't matter what you play, but the problem is to some extent that we have Kerala has its sevens, Bengal has its Cape football, which is 5-7-a-side football. And I think the only player who's really made it to the top was over a decade back, NP Pradeep from Kerala, who made it as a professional from sevens in Kerala. Otherwise, I think it's rather the other way around, that the IM Vijayans and all these guys used to play sevens, and the Bengal players used to play Cape football, or especially the Africans who live and play in Kolkata play a lot of Cape and sevens whenever they're off season.
Next question. I mean, my manager is also included in this. Why Germany produces the best managers?
We have a generation of very good managers at the moment. Do they produce the best? Again, can be discussed, but I think if you see certain coaches are linked to a certain system. Either it's Mainz, Klopp and Tuchel are both former managers of Mainz. The next big one coming out of Mainz will most probably be Bo Svensson. Okay, he's Danish, but he's also an ex-Mainz player, so he's the next one. The other big school of football in Germany is the Red Bull universe. So a lot of coaches have come out of that. Even though Ralf Rangnick wasn't successful at Man United, Ralf Rangnick is most probably the father of a lot of these coaches, and everyone calls him professor. So a lot of these coaches who've come through the system, of course, Red Bull has a great scouting system as well, but the Red Bull way of also playing an attacking brand of Timo Werner is the perfect example of a player of that Red Bull mindset. Erling Haaland is a perfect example of that RB Leipzig or Red Bull Salzburg concept of football. So that's something which has been there now over a decade now, and therefore Germany is producing such quality managers, and again over I think about 9 coaches in the German league system at the moment, which means half of the coaches have a background at either Leipzig or Salzburg.
Yeah. Rahul, we can maybe also do a podcast with Arnav later on the coaching systems out there. So
Yeah, I had
it would be a very interesting.
different schools.
Yeah, different schools of coaching. Which is the second best country to produce the managers?
I would not say the best is Germany. I think the French produce good quality managers. The Spanish produce good quality managers. The Portuguese, the Italians. So it's not just Germany. My English friends will say the English, but again, little tough on that one. But again, good managers come from everywhere, and we have very, very good young managers. Sorry, got something in the eye. Very, very good managers in India coming up, with Clifford Miranda winning the Super Cup, Renedy winning the under 17s. We've got Merajuddin Wadu, Ishfaq Ahmed, these guys, this whole generation, Samir Naik at Dempo, Stephen Dyer's won today, might get promoted with Amarnath. United and from the second division. So that generation of footballers used to play under Bob Houghton about 10, 15 years back. That generation. So hopefully we will have better managers in India down the road.
My next question is for both of you. If I know Rahul recently did an article on the best managers in the ISL or the I League for that matter. Who are your personal favorite managers in India? Both of you.
See, the problem is if I just go by success. For example, Habas has been one of the most successful coaches to coach in the ISL. But I would never like the style of football that Habas teams play, because he's playing a very organized, systematic way. Same about someone like Steve Coppell, right? These guys are trying to grind out results. I like managers, especially the managers that have come to FC Goa, Lobera, for example, with his way. At the moment, it is for me, are two managers. It's Manolo Marquez and Des Buckingham, especially Des Buckingham and a younger age, and what he's been able to get out of these players, especially the way, because I followed him now for nearly a decade, Lazinzwala Changte, the way he's exploded over this last season, really. Manolo Marquez with the small budget team like Hyderabad. Hyderabad does not spend as much as Mumbai or as ATK, Mohun Bagan. Has been able to develop that team, but it's also made Indian players better. If I take Chinglen Sana, he was sort of out of the system. He was just another defender. Now he's an India centre back. So those kind of managers, I've liked until his incident in Bangalore. I was also like the way of Ivan Vukomanovic. It's just like he brought something to that Kerala Blasters team. And that energy, that vibe, but also the quality when you speak to the players. Again, he's lost a few plus points with that whole incident in Bangalore for me. But again, we've got tons of them over the years who've come in, and I think especially the Spaniards have left a big mark on the Indian Super League over the last few years.
For me, again, there's a bit of Bangalore bias in this. Again, I grew up watching Albert Roca's BFC side play, so there is a huge bias towards Roca and the way that he played. Of course, he didn't play for a long time. His BFC side didn't play for a long time in the ISL. They played the I League. He led the BFC side to their first ever AFC Cup final. BFC was the first ever Indian side to make an AFC Cup final, so it was a huge thing for us at the time. Currently, I think Des Buckingham his side is just beautiful to watch. I again, because we watch so much European football, we like teams that play with the ball and things like that. So when you see a Des Buckingham side play, they like to play with the ball. They take a few risks. There are some BFC fans who also say that they preferred Marco over, say, Simon Grayson, because Simon doesn't like playing with the ball. He is more of a defensive coach, and I mean, at least that's what we've seen this season, playing a lot on the counter and playing it long to Shiva or Roy, versus Marco, who took a few more risks. Of course, they didn't pay off, but he did try to play with the ball and things like that. So for me, there's a personal bias towards managers who like to play with the ball. Again, that's why I loved Albert Roca. Right now, it is Des Buckingham for sure in terms of managers in the ISL.
And Rahul mentions a very good example, that Marco Pezzaioli did not get the time really to settle his team. And if you would ask Simon Grayson, most probably, does he know why suddenly his team clicked? I don't think anyone knows. It just happened. He started winning and it happened. It's like last season when Mumbai City were top of the league, controversial decision, lost to Odisha, with a match where you should have gone up by 2 goals and the referee doesn't give it, and then the counter Jerry scores goals. It sometimes it's there are fine margins in football, and I think that's the challenge that you have. We've had again a lot of big names also coming in who've rather failed. But again, we've also had a lot of quality which has come in, and especially, as I said, especially the Spanish coaches. Or if we go to the I League as well, we've had a lot of good coaches over the years who've come in, who've coached. Albert Roca, of course, in his time. Ashley Westwood over there at the time as well. Who can forget Vincenzo Anisi at Gokulam, who's won the I League twice. Nico this season with Round Glass. And again, it's an interesting mix of coaches, of managers who have come in and coached in the Indian system.
I'll quickly take Harsha's question. Before that, we will soon be also moving to the next topic of discussion today, which is the IWL. So, if anybody has any questions on the IWL, Roshan, I know you've been watching all the games. So, if you have any interesting facts to share with us, please let us know. Harsha has asked on this Kick ID, why didn't they use Step Out? It is a company based out of Kolkata, recently won a prize in competition in the Netherlands. Wouldn't that be a better choice or experience matters?
I can't comment on that. I don't know Step Out. I know a little bit about Kick ID, so therefore, would it be better? Would it not be better? I think Kick ID is already working with the German FA and with some big clubs as well. So I think from an experience standpoint, I think they're a little further down the road. But otherwise, I would not know why this company or why not another company was chosen.
Kumar has another question. If Grassroots or Blue Clubs Cups program is for the showcase purpose, what is the structure and plan for the Blue Cup program? AFF did not state.
That he has to ask the AFF. I'm not the AFF, so I can't answer that question. Sorry, Kumar.
Almighty has subscribed to both the channels. Thank you, Almighty. Very grateful to you. Roshan has made this point. Isn't it a vicious circle when coaches get recruited from youth setup based on results, although results shouldn't be the priority in the youth section?
I think if you are at a club, look at bringing in coaches. You should observe them maybe for 3 months, for 6 months. How are they working with the kids? How are they setting up the kids to play? Do they fit into the philosophy of the club? If the club has a philosophy, a lot of clubs don't. A lot of clubs say they have a philosophy, but they actually don't. Every coach does their own little thing. So therefore, if you can answer these questions, then you could bring in a coach who hasn't done well, but who fits into your system. Otherwise, again, that's why a lot of teams have played the youth leagues over the years to win the youth leagues. Those who've seen the Renedy Singh interview when we spoke about the under-17 youth league will realize that for Renedy, it was sort of a check and the proof of concept on, am I working with the boys the right way? And failure sometimes is your biggest friend, because when you are winning, you think everything is right. It's when you lose, you learn the most. Why did you lose? What were the shortfalls? And this is something I come back to the German example. When Germany in 2000 were thrown out of the Euros, were the 40-year-old Lothar Matthäus still playing for the team? They said, we need to reform our complete overhaul, our youth system. And this is 10 years after Germany won the 1990 World Cup in Italy. And Franz Beckenbauer, our biggest sort of legend, had said, you know what, Germany will be unbeatable over the next decade. So therefore, you have to see how you structure, you build. The end result, so to say, of what you did in 2000 to 2002 was the 2014 World Cup win. Now, after 2014, Germany again became complacent, even though our system is still amongst the best in the world. And most probably we were the biggest underachievers of the last World Cup. Because I think if I see who got through to the latter stages of the tournament, Germany most probably had it in them to win the World Cup. But now the question being asked is, why did not Germany? So that's a question, right? Pep Guardiola has changed German football to a certain extent. The Germans play football and understand football, possession football, this, that, everything. Germany was always about, okay, we play shitty football, but we win. So that is the other question that you need to realize is, are you instilling also a winning mentality? And when do you instill that winning mentality? Because if you're winning at 13, 14, the kids who are the best at 13, 14, 15, they might not make it up to the senior level. So therefore, for them, it is very, very important when you're building your structure at a club, at an academy. I know that you have to show results. Again, it's very difficult. But parents will say, okay, this team is always coming mid-table. Why should I send my kid over there? Right? So this is an educational process, not only for the football community, for the football stakeholders, but for people who are sort of interested in the sport. And also India needs to understand in football, there will be no shortcuts for development. Very, very important. What you do today, this Blue Cup project launched on the 15th of May 2023. Actually, we should hold this discussion on 15th of May 2043 and see where this program stands. Or maybe at the end of the 47th cycle of Vision 2047 of the AFF. Then you can judge if the things which were started now, if it has reached the level that was envisaged by the AFF at this stage and today.
Kids who will be starting today will be like plus 20 years older than. Much better picture.
Rahul's hair most probably look a little bit more like mine.
It's definitely going to.
The gel won't work that well, but anyway, that's yeah. We don't talk about the ladies. We leave Akshata, and otherwise we'll have a different discussion.
So, Utkarsh, on this topic as well, Utkarsh, we have a different podcast. But of course, I'm sure Anwar will take up the answer. After the new broadcasting deal, can we expect the clubs to get more in terms of finance, since with Star they weren't getting anything from television rights?
First of all, there is no new broadcasting deal so far. Let's see if that happens. Point one. Secondly, Star is a stakeholder in the league. So they are involved in this. So they're not just a broadcaster. They are a stakeholder of the parent body of the league. And will they get anything from TV rights? As far as I know at the moment, no. Because no one values Indian football in a way that Indian football can be marketed. The marketeers of Indian football at the moment are struggling to get the rights of the national team matches to be a broadcaster to pick it up. Our matches in June. Again, difficult for fans to understand, but these are realities, and we've been speaking on this on the Twitter Spaces that people who are claiming that the rights are worth 500,000 crores or whatever, I can buy it for 5 rupees. No, most probably I can buy it for 1, but I would have to spend crores to produce the whole thing, and who's going to spend that money? That is the whole problem. This is a whole, Roshan used a good word, vicious cycle.
The next question is from Harsh again. AIFF is already the Blue Cups. On the Blue Cups, they already conducted a Zoom meet for clubs registered for FC Grassroots Day. There will be something on 22nd July, AIFF Grassroots Day too. There are lots of things actually.
Yeah, they will. 22nd of June. So that's the birthday of PK Banerjee. They're trying to do something. Again, they're saying a lot. They've held a few meetings. They're trying to build it. But again, the AFF is dependent on the clubs, the academies, the grassroots centers to implement what is needed. The AFF cannot implement it across India themselves. So you can give the framework, but the others have to do the work. Because otherwise, if the AFF has to do the work, that's the difficult part. That's the challenge that you have in all of this.
So these were the questions that we've received till now. Now we can maybe move to IWL. Do you both have any last thoughts on the Blue Cups?
I think for me at least, because like I said again, I have a younger brother. I have some interest in the whole Blue Cups program. I hope it works out well for them. And I think I will really be able to see how far this program goes, because I have a brother and I can see how much of an impact it has on him. And of course, he needs to be the one showing interest and things like that. The kids need to show interest, go out and play. Same with parents. They need to take them out, make them play. But yeah, again, we'll see where it goes.
I know there's also another quick question, so you can maybe answer that in there.
Yeah, we spoke about this AI that this German company has come forward to work with the AFF, and AI can help you in the tracking and identification if there is video material available. Also go through data or go through pictures, in the sense of also maybe down the road also track age fraud. I know that's not the first priority, but again, that would be an interesting thing down the road, because the database you create today, if a player is registered in the system and is registered with his own picture, age fraud does become more difficult. He might start at this stage as not an under 11, maybe as a 13 or 14, or maybe I don't know how old boy, but it is, I think, at 11, at 10, at 8, at 6, at 4, and more difficult to cheat in these age groups than it is in the older ones. So therefore, that is going to be a blessing in disguise in the long run for our football. That once this whole, not whole, but sort of, a bigger database is ready of players, that you can fall back on this data and cross check on again, and use AI, and in the sense of really track, is that, hey, listen, this picture looks similar, biometrics and all that kind of things. So it makes your life easier in regard to, in that 10 years or 15 years down the road, to not fully eradicate, but reduce the amount of age cheating which is going on a regular basis in Indian football at the moment.
We also did a podcast today with Kritik Malhotra. So he's working as the director of sports science and analytics at Texas A&M Football, and he's deeply involved in sports science and AI. So hopefully, the content that we have produced with him will also answer some of these questions. Now coming to IWL, today was a big day, quarterfinals. The last two games of the day were sort of very unexpected. Odisha FC unfortunately did not make it to the semifinals, the team that I was rooting for. And East Bengal FC totally showed that, without their coach, things are not really looking that good for them.
One small correction: the coach was there. She was there.
Yes, but I don't know. Then a lot of I thought so too, because I remember we had a conversation about this in the evening, but a lot of people corrected saying this on Twitter. So I thought that maybe she's not really involved.
I think let's look at it from a football perspective, and I've said this, and I said this today as well. I think the IWL with 16 teams is just too big. I think we do not have the quality at the moment for a 16-team league. If we have a league of 6, maybe 8 teams, let them play at multiple venues. That would be worth more. And I was talking to someone that you also know quite well in the morning, who was telling me about all the shortcomings that are there. The diet was supposedly a disaster. The accommodation was not always, transport, this, that, everything. Forget match timing. This person said, at Transstadia, you were sitting in these cubicles. She fainted herself. She's not a player. She's an official. So there were a lot of these issues. And I say, and that's what I said, we always seem to go for mass these days rather than class. And again, when Setu FC wins 9-0 against East Bengal, I am not surprised. I spoke to some East Bengal fans who were very disappointed. You know what? We did so well. We won the Kanyashi Cup. We got in there. We got into the quarterfinals. That's like, hey, quarterfinals for East Bengal FC. I know sounds awkward, but for the women's team is a huge, huge, huge success. And that is down to what Sujata Kar as a coach has done with this team. Someone who tried to play abroad before even the other girls thought about playing abroad, because she came to Germany in 2002, was on trial with TSV Karlsheim, who were at the time in the second German Bundesliga, would have gotten into the club, but due to work permit issues, that was an amateur league. So the second German women's division, as per German understanding, would have been a grassroots league, so to say. Yeah. So therefore, I feel it's a success. And we have to realistically say that if you see Gokulam Kerala, if you see Setu FC, if you see what Kickstart has built, not only this season but also last season, also Odisha FC have built, let's say these 4 clubs are a little a cut above the rest. Eastern Sporting Union, these Manipuri teams still have a certain level of quality, but they can't compete with the top teams anymore. So because it's also a question of financial packages. So therefore, to be surprised, I also didn't understand why the team which finished first played against the team which finished third. Someone needs to explain that logic to me. Normally, the first team would play against the team which finished fourth. So therefore, again, I don't know who did the draw in this, but there are a lot of these discrepancies, if I'm being nice, that are there. And again, if you look at that, what is possible. Again, we're playing in May. It gets up to 45 degrees over there. You have to find other solutions for not only women's football, but also for others as well. And because the youth teams who are playing Reliance Foundation, in some parts of India were playing also in these 40-45 degrees heat conditions in the afternoon at 3 o'clock, because the clubs cannot afford to pay the floodlight. And you can't go to the AFF or to Reliance and say, listen, just pay for the floodlight, because the floodlight costs are 10, 20, 30, 40,000 rupees per game. So there are these realities. So you have to build your structure, your league, your season. A lot of people want the Indian season to be like in Europe, from starting from August and running till May. That is a difficulty. You start in the monsoons and you would end in the heat. So you have to find solutions, because in the winter, for example, in the I League, if you play at Gokulam Kerala, it's still 30 degrees in Kerala, and then you go to real Kashmir and it's snowing, right? So these are just realities, and these realities have to be factored in how we structure our football.
Rahul, you're still, you're just out of college, so, and you've extensively followed Indian football. Did you know, like, did your friends know that, something called as an IWL is happening in our country?
Yeah,
That there is
unfortunately
something
not. I
happening?
I think that the sad reality is a lot of them didn't know the ISL was going on, but yeah, I let alone like the I League or the IWL. But yeah, no, not many knew about the IWL. The very few that knew the IWL was there in Bangalore at least was because Kickstart was playing in it. Apart from that, not really. Again, Kickstart, because Kickstart is a club that is very close to my house. People around my community knew of the fact that they were playing, but apart from that, not really. And again, it's of course there are a lot of other things attached to it, like broadcast time, the timings of the matches, where the broadcast is taking place, things like that. But yeah, again, the marketing of the tournament, the release of fixture dates, all of that probably adds up to everything. But in general, I think Indian football as such at college level isn't followed as much.
I know you mentioned a very important point that, of course, the number of teams could have been reduced. And, the first reaction that, especially that even I observe on Twitter, is that when you give an opinion like this, people, the first reaction is that they'll be angry. That, why? How can you say that there should be less number of teams? People should organize things better. But they often forget that there's a huge cost associated to these things. If we had a lesser number of teams, maybe we could have broadcasted all the games. Maybe we could have given them better facilities, better food, better accommodation.
It's not just a women's problem, Akshata. It's a men's problem as well. We currently have 11 teams in the ISL and 12 teams in the I League. We do not have enough players to fill these two leagues. Whatever people are saying, we have to wake up to that, and we're going to blow up the leagues. Next season, we'll have 26 teams in these two leagues. So the reality is, it doesn't matter if it's men's or women's. We are blowing up the leagues. We are diluting the standard of the leagues. We're reducing the number of foreigners. Again, some of these teams, it was quite interesting to see where they came from. You had a goalkeeper from Malaysia, striker from here, striker from from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Ghana. You had this girl at Lord's FA who was a Philippines international. Interesting, really interesting how this whole gets up, and one has to question the thought process of how are you structuring this whole thing? How are you going to run it? Because there is a lack of talent at the moment at men's and in women's football to complete these leagues. A team winning 9-0 is, for Setu, an intense training session would have been better than this game in the end, most probably.
Against East Bengal FC, I mean, they have, if you look at the, in the group stages, the games that they have played, I think there's a draw against Visaka, and then there's this one game against Hops, which was 0-3, that, the difference was of 3 goals. Apart from that, they crushed every game.
East Bengal conceded 8 goals against Gokulam, right? So that, again, and Gokulam has scored 14 against Kahani, right? So there is a gulf of standard between the top 4-5 teams and the rest of the league. There's no doubt about it. And it showed. Again, there are teams, of course, they have a big, East Bengal is a big name. Odisha FC is a big name. Churchill Brothers is a big name. These are teams which we know from the men's game. That's why they are big names in their own rights. Gokulam Kerala is a different thing, because they've been focusing on men's and women's for quite a while now. One of the exceptions, I would say. but again, if you see Setu FC has done that. Kickstart has focused on the men's and women's. The men's are not really getting out of that Bangalore Super Division into the second division level. So therefore, these are topics that one needs to look at and try and find solutions. And again, I think solutions are sometimes to try and consolidate. And again, if you had an 8-team league, I think all the issues regarding food, accommodation, stay, travel, broadcast, and all that could have been handled maybe a little differently. You've played too many matches in too short a time. That is another problem. I mean, you're playing every third day or every fourth day. You get one or the other break in the middle. You've got 7 matches. Yeah, I think in 25 days. It's too many, and that is another problem that we have to, that needs to be built. I know that Tete said in my interview we were working on it, we will solve it next season. So we have that clip, so we can play it to Tete next season. So that's the challenge that they have.
Just want to quickly take up some questions that have come up. Harsh says, state FAs like Bengal are rocking to the core. It's insane the things I've seen during CFL and CFL women's. They even refuse to register a club under guidance of first women Arjuna awardee footballer.
We leave it at that.
Kumar says the AFF appointed Sarthak Mishra as state development manager to oversee all the state associations.
Good step. Now he has to deliver.
Harsh corrected my point. 1-0 win, EB and Hops. Roshan has a question. Aruna, is there expertise in the AFF of women's football to bring Indian women's football forward?
The AFF is in a rebuilding phase. A lot of people who've been there for a while have left. And it will be interesting to see how they sort of rebuild. And that is the challenge that they have. Also in women's football, they had certain people. Some of them have gone. New people are coming in. So the expertise again. What is the expertise? Right? Sorry, that is the first question that we need to ask. Who is an expert on a topic? If people think they are an expert or the AFF thinks they're an expert, doesn't mean they are an expert. It's like when they say, listen, Arsene Wenger will come to India and sort out our football. Listen, Arsene Wenger towards the end couldn't even sort out Arsenal. What is he going to sort out with Indian football, right? So let's be frank about this. So and he knows nothing about India per se, right? So therefore, that's the thing. The expertise needs to be there on the market, on the area, that if someone tomorrow tells me, listen, reform, I don't know, a German rugby, I don't have a clue about rugby, and in a German context, forget it even more. What would I do over there, right? So you have to know your stuff, and that is, I think, the biggest challenge in all of this that we have. That you have the right people, the right expertise, the right knowledge to push the things forward.
So we have wrapped up all the questions. Please, whoever is here, follow Sports Khabri, follow Arun Fort. You can find the link to Arunava's channel on the title. Please click on that link and go to Arunava's channel and also follow him. And if there are any topics that you would like us to discuss in our upcoming podcast, please feel free to share them with us, and we'll make sure that we, include them in our discussions, or we, come up with specific videos to cater to those questions. Utkarsh has also joined us. More corporates are needed either in ISL or I-League. That's the only way to get the money and marketing required in our system. While we are at this, I also had one question which I've already asked you once before, but I think it will be better if we can answer it here again. That in the next season, the IWL, the AFF wants to fill the gaps with corporates. There is a huge bidding amount that will be asked, which is starting from somewhere around 2 crores. When a bid is asked for, the amount that is given by the organization, how is that incorporated into the league? What amount of it goes into the prize money, into making sure that the resources are used in proper way, and divided into proper functioning of the league? So can you just tell us something about that?
If I think that money goes to the AFF and goes into the general kitty of the AFF and then spent on Indian football. Right? I mean, the money goes to the AFF And the AFF used it as it's part of the overall budget of the AFF. The AFF has fixed prize money for the I League, fixed expenditures for the I League. That's coming from the general body. So it's not something which is a special kitty, so to say, which is created and then it's spent on the I League or whatever. That's different for the ISL because that is handled by FSDL. That's a totally separate conversation, so separate discussion. But in an AFF context, if I understood it right, the money that comes in will go into the general running of the AFF.
Okay, so it's not just for that particular league.
No.
And then Utkarsh's question.
Yes, theoretically yes, but practically no, because I think we need to slowly grow our leagues. I think if we have expanded indirectly, unknowingly during the pandemic, also because of the merger which happened in 2018, 2019, what was discussed by those FIFA AFC reports. So we are in a situation where I'd say ISL will grow now by one team per year with promotion. I League, the AFF is going to push it up to 14, if I understand them right, this year, maybe to 16 next year. And that gives me a little bit of headache in the sense of, okay, we're closing in on 30 teams in the top 2 tiers of Indian football. You've reduced the number of foreigners to 3 playing, 5 in the squad in the I League, which means you will need 8 Indians per team. And if you look at some of the teams at the lower level, if you look at Sudeva, you look at Kengre, how they were playing this season. Sorry, no disrespect to my friends over there in those clubs, but that did not look like they deserve to be in that league. And that is the difficulty we have is how tough are we going to be. Now you're going to get corporate entries. They're going to come in late because the market is already so that's going to be an interesting part to see how it happens.
Kumar has said instead of conducting IWL in summer, they can conduct in winters in the November, December, and January in centralized venues. We also have to remember that at that time the ISL, I League are also on. So
not only that, but also in parallel, the youth leagues are running, other competitions are running. There are international engagements of the Indian women's also. So therefore, to say that you're going to conduct it in the winter is relatively easy, but centralized, the AFF wants to do away with the centralized system. They want to do home and away. So the costs, it is going to go up rather than down. So that's those are the real challenges of the AFF. They're saying second division next year also. Again, the second division final leg at the moment is also home and away, which is an added burden on the clubs. The clubs are saying we want to reduce cost because the players, the costs on players are too high. Travel costs, accommodation costs, food costs, all of those costs have gone up due to inflation. So that is it's a very difficult thing. Is if your income streams are not there, how are you going to fund the whole thing? It's more difficult even in a second division context or an IWL context compared to an ISL context. Even though in the ISL you're losing much more money. So those are the challenges that Indian club football is facing at the moment.
the point Arunva stated with women's football of lack of talent is totally on point. I mean, look at Setu FC, it's Stella Blaster 2.0. How do we go forward considering this situation?
Well, it's Setu FC is a little further down the road because they've won the IWL and Kerala Blasters have not won the ISL. So in that way, Setu FC are a little bit more successful than Blasters. But on your point, yes, it's the point here is our talent base is very, very limited. If you see the best players are playing in the biggest clubs, and they are in those 3, 4, 5 teams that I've mentioned again and again. And again, and the other girls who are playing in other teams who are talented will get picked up by those. So therefore, it's a very, very difficult challenge that I think Indian football faces in finding the right path. Not only that the challenges are there. And Roshan, you're more than welcome. I rather I think should say it in German to you, but I won't. I'll refrain from that now.
Kuman has asked, how many teams will be promoted to I League from I League Second Division? How many corporate teams will be?
So at the moment, it looks like 2 teams will be promoted from the second division. 2 are going down, so 2 are coming up. They're replacing. 1 team is leaving the league because Roundglass Punjab is moving up. It could be 1, it could be 2, maybe even 3 corporate teams that the AFF get in. If they get 3 corporate teams in, it's I don't know how they're going to get their players. But again, it could be also corporates already playing in the lower rungs. Maybe a team from Bangalore which is playing over there in Kerala or Bengal or Goa, whatever. So let's wait and see who decides to pick up a bid and try to get a road, or maybe even one of those second division teams who don't actually qualify via the regular promotion route.
Yeah. Arnava, the next question is, how can we market the IWL more constructively in order to push for a more sustainable league for women's football in the decades ahead?
It's not only women's football, it's men's football as well. You have to find the right revenue streams to be able to fund the whole shebang, as I would say. That is your biggest challenge. People are losing money across the pyramid, at the top and at the bottom. Everyone is losing money. There are very, very few people who are making money or have made money. Um, and the point is, it is a challenge. I think that at the right time, TV rights need to be valued in some sort of form or way. At the moment, they are not, and that's a challenge in itself, because I think TV rights is the biggest potential revenue earner for everyone. That's the case around the world, but it's not an Indian problem. It's very often a problem in developing football markets across Asia, Africa. Especially Africa, Asia. To some extent, I would say Canada falls into the bracket. Some countries in South Central America fall into the bracket. Oceania falls into the bracket. So therefore, it's not just an Indian Pacific problem. In India, the biggest problem is that the salary of the players are high because our talent pool is limited. And now if I hear some of the salaries that the girls are talking, the 3.2 lakhs that the AFF said, some of the girls are getting quite a bit more than the 3.2 lakhs, because again, the number of girls are not there who can play at that level. So that's the do I create enough talent which I can push up the system? How do I balance that? And that is the challenge that the AFF has at the moment.
Arnav, again, this.
Sorry, Rahul, please go ahead.
No, this is just a fan speaking again. Do you actually see the IWL next season out coming up with a home and away system and having fewer teams in the league, probably like 6 to 8 teams?
That is what Tete has hinted at in my interview. So anyone who's listening, go back to that interview. I think it's a very interesting one, where Tete sort of states, I think if I understood it right, it's about, I think they might try 8 teams home and away. I think that's a good size. And again, we have got 4 or 5 good quality teams in that league already, and 3 more. Why not, if they get the right players in? You suddenly from 16 to 8, and then create a second tier as well. I think that's the way forward.
Will it be realistically possible from the next season itself, Arunima, or from next to next season?
Sorry?
Will this be realistically possible from the next season or from the next to next season?
You could have done it this season as well, theoretically, if you wanted to. But again, you were trying to commit to too many states. Your problem is that you're trying to create a pathway from the states to the top of the pyramid. That's a problem in the men's and the women's game. That's why while I was talking to Tete, I come back to that discussion because, of course, Tete is the league committee chairman. And I said to him, because Tete has been speaking about a 4-tier system in the men's game of ISL, I-League, second division, and then the local leagues. I said, why don't you, between the local leagues and the second division, create a regional league format, right? So that because for some teams to go from the local league to the second division is not a big step. But for other teams, it's a big problem. So therefore, you have to find the right solution in an Indian context. Again, there are bigger states. If you say Bengal, most probably could have 7-8 teams in the I-League, right? Kerala could have 4 or 5 teams in the I-League. Karnataka or the Bangalore Super Division has 4 or 5 teams who could play in that league. Goa has 4 or 5 teams to play in that league. You could have 30 teams already made up for 3-4 states. Right? Mizoram, the teams don't want to take that step. Aizawl FC is still playing I-League, but the other teams who could play second division, no one from the top teams in the Mizoram Premier League wanted to play second division, because they say the costing for us is way too high. So there you need to realize, what level of football can I play? What can I compete? Do I run around and beg people for money? A lot of teams are doing that to try and play at that level. Teams have opted out. Dempo had opted out. They've come back this season. Shillong Lajong had opted out, have come back this season. So therefore, you have to decide what is the best in the interest of your club and the interest of the talent of the player. Shillong Lajong, Dempo have produced a lot of players over the years. Dempo is the most successful team, if you say, since the start of the NFL era. So therefore, these are all factors which I feel are very, very important.
Yeah, moving on to the next question, Arnava. Minimum wage and obviously a longer league means that more money needs to be pumped into the system. How will the ISL clubs come and invest? Are we looking at maybe a crash of the idea, maybe crash of the IWL?
I don't see a crash of the IWL. I think there will be enough teams to play the league. The question is, what is the format? If they realize they can't do a home and away format, we will go back to this format, and it will happen in April, May. It's the worst case scenario, but this format is something which they've been trying to do over now for I think 5-6 years. It's just that for the AFF, that's the cheapest way of doing it. And one has to remember that the AFF, the IWL, as the second division, as the I League for the AFF, all of these are expenditures. There is no income through these leagues.
Right.
But if we
Arnava,
change the
just
timing, sorry, please go ahead.
yeah, it's similar lines itself, Akshita. I was just wondering whether if the same structure would work in, say, another venue, if it took place in a venue that provided better climate and better playing times. I mean, things like that. Would that change anything at all?
The problem is April, May, better climate is going to be tough in an Indian context, right?
Yeah.
And again, you also cannot forget politics of things. Think about if the IWL had been planned to be played in Manipur, it would have ended in disaster, you know. So think about it, that Manipur was hosting the India matches just in March. You know, it's not even 2 months ago. So therefore, you have to see in India there are a lot of factors which come in. The AFF also has to see which state, which state association is willing to host this. Last year, Odisha hosted. Odisha is hosting a lot of football. Kerala has tried it. You know, with Kerala, people were not very happy. So therefore, yeah, it's a difficult one. So you can't then say, listen, we're going to host it either in Goa or in Bengal, because that's your sort of your last resort. These two you can always do. If you spend the right amount of money, you will somehow manage. But again, there is also heat in those states. So therefore, again, the winter months are the crucial months. Do you have enough time window? That's going to be the big challenge.
But while we're discussing the stadiums, Arnava, there's one also now open in Ladakh. But climatically, Ladakh is not an easy, place to actually walk around in also, because the oxygen levels are so low. So how are we planning to use the stadium to conduct bigger tournaments or something? In that?
I would not consider the stadium to be a venue for bigger tournaments. I would think that it's for the Ladakh football, for the club which has been formed over there to play there. But if they are asked, if they qualify, let's say for the second division I League or qualify for some level of women's level, they will be asked to play somewhere else, which is happening regularly on a regular basis for the clubs. The news of the day is, for example, Round Glass Punjab will not be playing in Panchkula, so they will most probably either be playing in Delhi or in Ahmedabad. So that's the situation as it stands. So that's also reality. I mean, the one example in world football which always comes up is Bolivia with La Paz. Bolivia win a lot of their home matches because they play, I think it's about 3,000 meters plus high. So even the Brazils and Argentina struggle when they travel to Bolivia. So therefore, again, these countries have been challenging that with FIFA and with CONMEBOL for many years. So therefore, that's a high altitude venue. Yeah, it's a question that I think does not arise at this moment.
A lot of questions are also being asked with the Ram Glass's decision to opt for JLN Stadium in Delhi, instead of renovating the stadium in Panchkula and putting the money that they will be putting here to make sure that the stadium in Panchkula is ready. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are certain structural issues at Panchkula which most probably does not make it ISL conform, and therefore I think they have to go elsewhere. Otherwise, I think Round Glass Punjab would have preferred to go to and stay in the Chandigarh region. But they're not the first club to go there. You've seen Rajasthan United last season in the I League went to Delhi and played in the Ambedkar. JCT has played in Delhi in the past as well when they actually won the NFL. So that will be, let's see how it goes.
Do they qualify the ISL rules then?
They're working on it.
Yeah. Kumar says Indian football team should get some international success to get more people in India to watch ISL and I League.
Yes and no. I think international success overall for the structure of Indian football is very, very important, 100%. But the question is, would Indian fans who watch international football be wanting to watch Indian football? I go back to a tweet I did during the World Cup. I questioned people. I said, listen, guys, you're supporting Argentina and Brazil in such a huge, huge way. Just a little bit of that love for Indian football would be nice. And they said, let Indian football reach that level. And that's the problem. There is no sort of, I feel India is always this, a hard word maybe. I feel fake national pride, right? That their real national pride is, I would say, when a team is losing, to support a team. And at the same amounts to a club. It doesn't matter. When your team is losing, you should support them even more. And that is something which is very, very difficult, very, very challenging. So therefore, I hope it changes. But again, I think it will take time. I think Indian football has it. And a lot of people say, you've got these fans and that. I always say, Rahul is sitting in Bangalore and BFC has had a lot of success and, is happy to have 15, 17,000 fans in the stadiums. But I've seen an India match in 2001 at the Kantirava with over 30,000 people literally standing on the roof of the stadium. Sitting on the roof or on the water tank. There used to be a water tank at the stadium. There were people sitting on the water tank. And therefore, 30,000 plus. And there was no PR, there was no social media. All of these things did not exist in those days.
I think loyalty is not a problem, I say, Anwar here, because, there are fans like Rahul who've been supporting Arsenal through their many years of low period, despite everything. So loyalty they have shown. I don't know why is it not devoting towards the Indian national team.
I think it is. It's a difficult one to explain, but I feel again, if you're okay now, you're a Liverpool fan. You have had a good stretch, even though I made a few pranks with you over the season, right? And I will continue to do that, especially do that with my friends who are Manchester United fans. Why I say, yeah, Manchester United has been successful, but don't tell me Manchester United plays good football. And I remember this Ralph Rangnick conversation I had with friends. I said, Ralph Rangnick most probably has been the best manager that you've ever had, most probably. But you guys don't realize it. Ralph Rangnick is most probably the best manager Manchester. Don't tell me all that Alex Ferguson's won. I'm saying from a football perspective, this guy knows more than anybody else in the whole bloody football world. People like him, Bielsa, those kind of guys, Sampaoli, crazy guys. But they are football nerds. Pep Guardiola belongs to that class. That's a different level of. I feel we have some in India as well, right? So therefore, those need to be nurtured. They shouldn't be stopped. But the attachment again has Manchester City, with all the success they've had over the last 10, 12 years. Manchester City is not the most supported club in the world, right? So support is a thing that which comes in some sort of form way. You've got attached to Liverpool. Rahul, you're an Arsenal fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, let's again. You guys have clubs, but again, you're not going to win much, right? So that's you live with that, right? I made this joke with Freddie Ljungberg. So if I can make this joke with Freddie Ljungberg, I can make it with you as well. Yeah, but the point is again in that context, right? And Real Madrid, if you think last season winning the Champions League, they were not the best team. They were not even amongst the top 5 best teams. But again, they know how to grind it out and win matches. They just simply know that. And that is the quality. That's the challenge that again Guardiola and his team will face tomorrow. And that's the thing. Also in an Indian context, East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, Kerala Blasters have the biggest fan base. Surely, ATK Mohun Bagan did win the ISL this season, but where does East Bengal stand? Kerala Blasters, I said, sadly, with all the with all that they've done, sadly, I feel that this club, not the club, but also their fans deserve a trophy, right, for the support that they've had. But we've seen the negative, ugly part. Yeah.
Thoughts on I'm sorry, I don't know.
Cape football is the small-sided football in Bengal. I don't. Again, it's nice for rural Bengal or the suburbs of Kolkata to have it. There are more fans attending Cape football than I-League matches most of the time. So but I don't see it's a value of the football system. It's most of an entertainment factor for these places to see players who play the Calcutta Football League, or maybe even playing I-League, or even in the old days you used to see even the Baichungs, the IM Vijayans, the Renedis to play Cape football, in some sort of form or way. So therefore these five-a-side tournaments, but that's the thing. It's again like sevens in Kerala. It has no value for our 11-a-side football, and that's the sad part, I feel.
Samrat had also asked about the OCI players. Samrat, we have already done a separate video on it, so you can go ahead and watch that one. It will give you much better clarity. I know our I-League teams want to go to ISL through promotion, and how long I-League will allow corporate entry, and corporate entry will be closed.
I think it'll be on for the next 2-3 years, most probably. I don't know how many teams they'll induct each year. If you see Bangalore FC, if you see Srinidhi Deccan, even Gokulam Kerala, these were all successful corporate entries. But we've had the counter example of Kalyani Bharat, who shut down after 9 or 10 months. DSK Shivajins had to shut down due to financial irregularities of the owning company. So therefore, we've got negative examples. So I think you'll have corporate entries, but the one or the other will also disappear. And there are clubs which will come and go, as has been the case. So therefore, I think it will stay. I think it's also a potential money revenue earner for the AFF to try and get revenue into the system. I think that's the big challenge for the federation. And if you can get 5-10 crores with corporate entries every year, that is 5-10 crores that they can spend on Indian football.
Do you think we need a common football philosophy across all academies in India to be a better footballing nation? This football philosophy is also a big part of the Vision 2047.
I don't think so. I think we need to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the different regions in India. So what I can do in the Northeast, I can't do in Bengal. What I can do in Bengal, I can't do in Kerala. And Kerala, what I can't even do in neighboring Goa. And can't do in Karnataka. And what, again, in Punjab and Kashmir, the thing is different. We have to be I think that's going to be the challenge, to find a common Indian philosophy at the top, but you regionalize it, localize it. Because I take Bengal as an example. What works in and around Kolkata will not work in sort of Central Bengal, and North Bengal again is a different world. Darjeeling Hills is totally different. So you have to regionalize your things, and that is, I think, the challenge. That is having a national plan is nice, but the federation at the national level is only as strong as your state associations, your clubs, your academies. Your stakeholders are very, very crucial for that.
Kumar has asked when will the Twitter Spaces will be back. Kumar, very soon, hopefully.
Yes.
If not this week, then next week we'll try to definitely do a Twitter Space. If there are any topics you would like us to discuss, please feel free to let us know about them, Kumar. Poojan has asked about East Bengal. I'm sorry. Ask about loyalty to an East Bengal fan. Why can't we get someone a gem like PL Star to Indian circuit, though he is about to sign for the European
national
national team,
team.
why don't we approach someone similar?
I think that Bielsa, to get someone like Bielsa, to have the right setup for Bielsa, we don't have that setup. He's such a demanding guy. Um, I think it would be difficult, and must Bielsa meeting the East Bengal club officials. We're not talking different worlds; we're talking different planets clashing, so to say. And again, Bielsa meeting the Kolkata media. Oh God, I mean, just thinking about the whole thing would be insane. Knowing how he is, Bielsa with Indian referees. Um, yeah, but again, um, getting that kind of coach. Yeah, again, Kumar, you're saying it, intensity, running. Again, the Jurgen Klopp effect, which you've seen at Liverpool as well. That these kind of coaches demand a lot, and at some stage physically you are down and out. So that's going to be, yeah.
Uh, Rahul, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, sure. So Cyprus asks any improvement in Triman's situation. Please provide some information regarding. So obviously, this is Triman. He's left. He's given up his Belgian passport to come play in India. Arnava, any update on the situation?
As far as I know at the moment, I think no updates, because I think sadly the boy is not getting the support that he needs, and I think there's no one actually in a position or willing to provide that support, because that's a government of India decision. And again, yeah, it's as much as it would be great, but again, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Uh, no, it's not this one. Sorry. Renedy said we need better technical players. Shubham did watch the podcast, so this is coming from there. Good technical
Exactly,
decisions that
exactly.
you
I
have
think
here.
I think Randy Singh. I think that Randy himself was technically better than most players that are playing now, and again, and most players have come through some sort of youth system, most of them, and that's what I'm saying. That the kids at the youngest age, whenever they start, need to be on the ball as much as possible. I have seen training centers in the past where you had one ball for 30 kids. If that kid touches the ball 5 times in an hour, that's great. Every center which is there needs to have at least one ball for every kid. Balls get damaged, whatever. So you actually need to have a 1.5 ratio to per kid, so to say, ball ratio, so that you have a backup. That's become much better, but you need to be on the ball. I was last year in Kolkata with an academy in there, a small one which focuses on the technical aspect. A friend of mine is the technical director, and I saw these 10, 11-year-old kids. I said, for Kolkata standards, you're technically good, even tactically you're good. But if you see the kids from and they went for the Mohun Bagan trials, um, none of them got in, and they had high hopes. And I said, listen, the kids from the northeast were coming, because Mizoram has its grassroots program already running for 6, 7, 8 years. They are better equipped, and that is the challenge, right? So we need to produce better players, and technically we need to be better. I think, physically we're much stronger today than we were 5, 10 years ago. Our nutrition of the players is much better than it was 5, 10 years ago. As Randy said, the travel, the accommodation, the grounds. Not only Randy, but I was on a podcast with Deepak Mondal the other day. He said the same thing. I said he said, even when we started, he was part of Mumbai City in the first season. He was one of my players. He said, I know that we were struggling with training grounds. We had a lovely match pitch, but that match pitch was also, because it's actually DY Patil was and is a cricket stadium. So it has its bad patches of grass, which, where there were grass burns and all that kind of things. So these are realities, right? So you have to work around them. But playing football on the ball, your running will come automatically.
This is maybe the last question that we take. We've been, like speaking for 1.5 hours. Please, whoever is here, please subscribe to Sports Complete. Please subscribe to Arun Foot. The link to Arunava's channel is mentioned in the title. just click on that particular link and go to the channel, subscribe to it, please. So the last question of the evening is from. Actually, I wanted to take Harsha's question. What's your thought on dedicated job portal for footballing circuit? For the best 90 on the pitch, we need best years of behind the scenes.
I don't know if a job portal in Indian football context would work. I think a lot of these things happen about about relationships, about people knowing the people who are doing a good job, or people applying for jobs, because football is not the typical sort of 9 to 5 job where you can place an application. Be it as a coach anyway, your reputation is very important. Today is a day that Northeast United have appointed Mandar Tamane as their CEO, who I regard as one of the best administrators, club managers. Now, Mandar has worked at JSW at a club where he had the budgets, where he had the possibilities to create something from scratch. At Northeast United, it's sort of a job of trying to resurrect a club with limited budgets. I don't know if a new investor is going to come in and suddenly the situation changes. But that is the thing, right? So a job portal sounds nice. Who's going to look at it? I know that the people running clubs, most of them would not use it and not look at it. So therefore, again, for those who have high hopes, it would be difficult, because you create a sort of a level of expectation which might not be fulfilled. Because if I'm honest, if I was running a team or a club, a job portal would not be something that I would look at to find talent. I would actually go by either I know people, or someone is recommended to me, or someone comes to me and I have a good feeling about that person. That is the way that I would how I would recruit people, and that's how I did recruit people and have recruited people over the years.
Any closing questions or remarks, Rahul?
I think there's a lot we have to look forward to. I think only time will tell as to where we are and where we're placed. Yeah, I think there's a lot to look forward to and be excited about, though, especially the Asian Cup next year. Yeah.
I think to just take Cyprus's last question, I find it interesting because it sort of sums up our discussion. Do you think our current administrator on the right track, unlike the last one? Again, even first of all, to talk about the last one, I think whatever people want to say, the last one did a lot of things and put a lot of basics in place of the foundation. Did they do enough? They will themselves most probably say no, they didn't. And to judge the current administrators at the moment would be too early. Again, I think in the first year they've tried to do too much, and the IWL just at the moment is another sign of that. They've got the senior women's national happening thereafter in Punjab, so that's going to be another 140 to 50 degrees challenge. That is something that they need to look at. So therefore, give the people time. They're trying to do the best, but in an Indian football context, it is very, very difficult. Because if the AFF does everything right, which you don't do, that's life. You don't do everything right. You're dependent on the other stakeholders, the state associations, the clubs, the franchises. You're dependent on FSDL, Reliance. You're dependent on the parents, the kids, the sponsors, the broadcasters. It's a very, very difficult thing to run a federation. It's not that easy. And you have to live with those challenges. What I would recommend the current set of administrators, better communication sometimes, why you're not doing something, why you're not broadcasting, let's say, all the matches of the IWL, why are the live updates not as frequent as they should be, those kind of small things. A lot of people will most probably still abuse you and give you a shitstorm, but I think there are a lot of people who will then understand things better. And the same thing applies to clubs as well. That I think a little bit of a more open and honest communication. I think BFC has done that very, very well over the last 10 years. Other teams have tried to do it. I tried to install it at the time at Mumbai City as well, that you have an open communication channel with the fans and try to explain to them things. And especially I think the big clubs, be it the big Kolkata clubs, be it Kerala Blasters, which is sort of in an unnice way, sort of copying the bad things of the Kolkata things, rather not working on the strengths that this fan base should have. There's a lot of things I think we need to work on.
Thank you so much, Arnav. Thank you so much, Rahul. We will end the podcast now. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Please subscribe to both the channels, Arun Food Sports Khabri, and let us know if there are any other topics that you would like us to discuss in our next podcast, and we'll make sure that we cater to your demands. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anwar. Thank you, Rahul. Have a good night.
Welcome. And just to add,
Bye,
not only follow us on YouTube, but also follow us, Sports Khabri, Akshata, especially Akshata on Twitter. Some very interesting tweets which come out from her. Follow Rahul as well. Follow me as well. And follow us also on Instagram. And if you don't, we'll catch you very, very soon. Bye and good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.